My story begins on September 24th, 2007, the day I found out that I was carrying a new life inside of me. First, I was shocked. Really shocked. But then I was beside myself with joy. For the next several weeks, I walked around on cloud nine, so excited that Brian and I were going to be parents. This is something that we had talked about, but neither one of us could believe that it was really going to happen. Then, in mid-October, my story took a tragic twist. Brian and I went to a leadership conference in Atlanta, Georgia. We were worshiping the greatness of God when I realized that something had gone wrong with the pregnancy. With a sick feeling in my stomach, Brian and I were headed to find the nearest hospital, only to confirm my greatest fear. We were told, after what seemed like hours of testing, that I had lost the baby. They could not locate a heartbeat or see any viable signs of life. Neither one of us knew what to say or how to react. We were devastated. My first emotion was overwhelming sadness and grief. How and why did this happen? I began to weep uncontrollably. This was my baby, and I could not grasp what I did to deserve this. Next came the intense feeling of anger. All I could think about were all the women out there that gave birth to healthy babies every day, and they didn't even want them. Why would God choose to take my child from me, us? I knew in my heart that our baby would be so loved and wanted. For the next couple of hours, Brian and I really did not say much, but we had to decide how to move forward. There was still a day left of the conference, and we had to decide whether or not to stay and attend or head back home and face the questions of the family. I knew that I could not go back home to answer all the questions that would bombard us, so we decided to stay in Atlanta that night and finish the conference that we started. After all, if I needed anything, it was the presence of God, and we both knew that I would find that there. The next day at the conference, as I sat listening to the band play, I was reminded that God's plan for my life was bigger than the current monster I was facing, and that He knew what was best for me. I prayed to Him, and I thanked Him for blessing me, and I told Him that if He allowed my baby to be taken, then He knew what was best, and I would follow Him no matter what. Despite the way I felt inside, I knew that He was in control, and I could rest in that. Over the weekend, we had hundreds of people praying for us. Word had already gotten back to the church about what had happened, and they all prayed for a miracle. On Monday, I returned to the doctor for a follow-up visit. We had no expectation, except that maybe nothing further would be required medically. That was the best that we could hope for. As we sat waiting for more testing, I prayed silently for a miracle, but I never really expected it to happen. As the lady performed the ultrasound, I turned my head away. I could not bear to see one more blank screen. As tears rolled down my face, she said, "Wait a minute. I think I've found something." My heart nearly jumped out of my chest, and I turned to look at the screen, and I saw a steady flicker, which was our baby's heartbeat. She could not believe what she saw, so for the next few minutes she continued to monitor the heartbeat, but it never went away. In just a matter of 3 days, we had went from the most incredible sadness to the most indescribable joy. She took us into the doctor's office, and he was ready to tell us the worst. She told him what she had found, and he sat there speechless. He could not explain what happened. As he compared the records from earlier in the week to the records he was now looking at, he was stunned. He looked at us and said, "Well, we have a healthy baby with a steady heartbeat. Congratulations." I knew in my heart that God had performed a miracle, and He had answered the prayers of so many in a huge way. That day in the ultrasound room, God became more personal to me than He ever had before. And now, over a year later, we have our miracle baby. Every day as I look into her big blue eyes, I am reminded of God and His faithfulness. My story is one of many stories that points us to a God that desires to have a personal relationship with us. He wants us to know Him in a very real way. And while every story may not have a happy ending like ours did, every story still begins and ends with a God that loves us deeply.